Hello, welcome everyone to the Generally Speaking podcast with Ty and Cody. Today we have a very special guest. It is Mayor Raymond Morris.
Mayor Raymond Morris, yes.
Mayor of Cumberland, I should say, Raymond Morris. It's going to be a good interview. Thanks for watching, and yeah.
Thank you again for doing this. We
Yes.
appreciate it a lot.
Oh, absolutely. Well, right now with everything going on with the coronavirus and all, anytime we can, I have the opportunity to maybe get to a different audience. I mean, I'm sure the listeners to your podcasts probably aren't people that normally hear from the mayor of Cumberland. So
Yeah,
this
very
gives
true.
me an opportunity to reach out to them and give them some words and maybe some encouragement and some advice on how to deal with what we're going through here now and see what we can do.
Well, absolutely. What? Because my mom is the whole city of Cumberland on lockdown.
Well, we're under the governor's executive order to stay at home, which that really means is you stay at home unless you absolutely have to go out somewhere for necessary trips to the grocery store, the pharmacy, to take care of a relative or a pet, things like that, things that are, that you really, really have to do. Everyone is advised to stay at home and not go out unless necessary. And then when you are out, comply with the social distancing requirements, staying 6 feet away from everybody, cover your coughs or your sneezes and things like that. But so it's, if you're around town, you won't see a whole lot of people going around, but there's still people in the stores and, buying the things they need.
Yeah. Realistically, how long do you think we're going to be like this? Because at what point do we stop? Because if it's less than like 100 cases, do we go back when there's less than 100, or do we go back when there's no cases at all?
I think, if you kind of watch how it's been trending in different locations, it will give you an idea of how long the cycle is in each place. Like in New York, from the governor announced today that the number of deaths have already started to decline over the last few days. So that'll give you an indication how long it could be. It's tough to predict, because I think the country will go through different phases as we do it. So we're just at the beginning of ours. Hopefully, with some of the things that were done prior to our first cases here in Allegheny County, that'll help us to have a smaller trend maybe than what's happening in the major metropolitan areas. I'm hopeful for that. Obviously the stay-at-home order, I think, is going to go through April. I mean, that's pretty obvious. We'll go through April. On a federal level, they're actually predicting this peaking sometime between May 1 and May 15, which is a little. When I heard that, I was on some conference calls this week with the U.S. Senators Van Hollen and Cardin, and also with Congressman Trone, and that's what they were saying. The federal people were telling them that peaking between May 1 and May 15. So that honestly was a little alarming to me. But I'm thinking, around here, maybe by the middle of May or so, if everybody really does what we should be doing, I'm thinking by the middle of May things will settle down here. At least that's where I'm hopeful.
Are you worried of it picking right back up in the fall? Because I've read somewhere of that happening, but I didn't know if that was. Sure.
Yeah. There's, obviously there's some concern if we stop the requirements too quickly, that it could come back again in the fall. It would, I think the key to it is the prevention side, trying to figure out a vaccine for it, and also the treatment. I think, there's, our medical people are doing a really great job of trying to figure this out. I believe they'll have treatments and they'll have vaccines by the fall that if it were to come back, they'd have a better way of handling it for the people that are infected with the virus.
Yeah.
So, do you see the kids going back at all? I'm guessing now. I'm obviously guessing now. To school.
I think I don't think you'll see anybody going back to school until the fall. I'm hopeful that by September 1st, all the schools would open back up. I know Frostburg is doing their summer session online, doing everything online, and finishing up obviously the spring semester online. So, and for the classes that you can do that with, that's great. I think Frostburg said about 98% of their classes they can do online. Some of the ones like the drama, theater, music courses and things like that, obviously, that if the people can't be in a room together, it makes it rather hard to have a class. But I'm hoping by September 1, everybody's back to school.
Right.
Yeah, this is honestly, this is crazy. I've never seen anything like this.
And quite frankly, you're in the same boat as everybody else. There's nobody else. I'll say this: there's very few people alive today who have seen anything like this. I mean, there hasn't been anything this big a health crisis since the Spanish flu in 1918. So
Yeah.
Right.
So you've got to be over 100 years old really to have experienced that. So this is sort of new to everybody, and I think that's one of the things it was part of the issue, is because everybody's heard, oh, you got to watch this, you got to watch that, other health issues in the past, but it was nothing like this. So they were always going, oh, they're just trying to scare us. And I think it's obvious at this point that that's not what people were trying to do. They're trying to be honest about what could potentially happen.
Yeah, I go to Towson University, and I think, as you know, they canceled school for that as well, or at least suspended the semester, and now we're doing online classes. So we had to come back to Cumberland, but that raises a thought of mine. This is kind of off topic to Corona, but I know a lot of people who will leave Cumberland, like my age, to go and pursue, something else, pursue like out of town job or to get out of town. But I have a question for you. Is like, why? What is a good reason for young people like me and Ty and I to stay in Cumberland and to try and start a career here?
Well, and with me, I worked a lot of different places. I actually grew up pretty close to Towson. I grew up out in Timonium.
Wow.
So there's advantages to major metropolitan areas in the job markets and the availability of jobs. There's also disadvantages to the major metropolitan areas, like the traffic, and things like that, just getting from one location to the other. I really think also the future of being able to work from home and do work online is gonna help rural areas like Cumberland and Allegheny County. I think the lifestyle out here is a lot more laid back than it is in the big cities. And I think that, but obviously, that any type of manufacturing type jobs that could come back in would be great, for our workforce to help get people employed here. But I think in the long run, it's more the lifestyle and the quality of life is the main reason why after I retired, I chose to stay here.
Right.
A lot of people who knew me were kind of assuming that I'd either move back to the Baltimore area where my mother and brothers are, or back to Kentucky where I'd lived for quite a few years also. And I just believe that this is a wonderful community with good people and there's a real future here if we learn how to work together. I think that's the key to everything, is getting everybody working together and having a quite frankly, a more of a positive attitude about the area in which we live. There's a lot of negativity out there, and I think we need to help change people's mindsets and get them to really appreciate what we do have here. I mean, just the outdoor activities that are available between the trails, the state parks. I just think this is a great place to live.
Yeah. You were born in Missouri, correct?
Right. My mother was from Missouri. My parents met during World War II. My mom was from Missouri, and I was kind of actually born in between moves. My dad worked for the railroad and was being moved from Detroit, Michigan to Ashland, Kentucky. And rather than just pick up and go to Kentucky, my mother went to her home in Springfield, Missouri, and that's where I was born.
How long did you
Never
live
lived there, but that's where I was born.
Oh, you didn't live there?
No, I never lived in Springfield. Went back every summer to see my grandmother, but never lived there. Still have some cousins there.
So did you grow up in the Baltimore area then,
Baltimore
mostly?
area.
Well, if I say I grew up in Baltimore, then I'm sort of denying that I'm really a hick from Eastern Kentucky. My dad was from Southern West Virginia. He was from Hinton, West Virginia, and he was a railroad manager. And so I grew up in Eastern Kentucky, Southern West Virginia, and the western part of Virginia until I was almost 13, and then I moved to Baltimore. So I moved to Baltimore for junior high school and high school, and then after that I went back to Kentucky. I went to a small school, Center College in Danville, Kentucky. I went there, and during the summers I'd come back to Baltimore and work for the railroad. And then after I graduated, I was a locomotive engineer for 3 years, and then I went into the management side for the railroad, which I always kind of described as being a migrant worker. Every 3 or 4 years, they try to find something I could do. I appreciated that during my career, so I moved around a good bit as a manager for the railroad.
So when you first moved to Cumberland, when did you have any idea to want to become mayor or to want to?
When I first moved to Cumberland, it was in 1983. I've been here twice. I was here from 83 until 90. And then I did that CSX World Tour, I call it, which was back to Baltimore, Chicago, Louisville, Kentucky, Russell, Kentucky, Huntington, West Virginia, and then came back here in 2004. Community service, public office was something I always thought would be something I would like to do. But quite frankly, I never thought I would live in any one place long enough to really get to know enough people or become that involved in the community to do it. But after I retired, and made the decision to stay, that I wanted to stay here, I just sort of looked around. I was still what I considered fairly young. You all might not. I was 59. And I just thought, there's still a few good years left in me. What can I do? And,
yeah.
And I looked at the city, and I just thought there were some needs that I thought I could help fulfill, and thought that the mayor's position might be something I might want to try. So I gave it a run.
Amen to that. As I'm sure you had to did you have to campaign door to door to become mayor?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm guessing that
it was a great learning experience for me doing it, because I'd never been involved in anything like that before. So
right.
What I did was I talked with some people who had run for office before, both successfully and unsuccessfully, and sort of figured out a path of what were the things you were supposed to do and what were the things you weren't supposed to do. And without question, one of them was walking and knocking on doors and meeting people and listening to them and listening to their concerns and their ideas about our community. There's a little bit of, when it comes to walking and knocking, there's a little bit of an art to it. And there's a little bit of a science to it. A lot of science and a little bit of art on figuring out which doors you knock on. I mean, you go down to the Board of Elections and you find out who initially. It's like the mayor's elections in Cumberland aren't the presidential election years. They're the off years that would be when the governor's elected. So there you go down and you get the statistics from those elections that have taken place, and who voted in the primaries and who voted in the general election. So when you go out on the primaries, you're knocking on the doors of people who have historically voted in primaries in the gubernatorial election years.
Right.
So that takes it down. And then, because obviously as you're walking, if you see somebody, you don't walk by them, you stop and talk to them too. So, but that's really, I did that on, there's 11 precincts in Cumberland, and like before the primary, my wife was helping me. She would drive the car and give me a list of the houses that I was supposed to knock on and the doors in the next block. And then she'd watch to see whether we kept track of whether I was able to contact anybody or whether I just left an informational card for them. And then we'd get to the next block and it'd be hot and I'd want to get in the car and she'd just hand me the list for the next block and drive away.
Yeah.
But, I'm not kidding. I'm serious. She was a taskmaster. But and what I did, I walked all 11 precincts, and then we went back. And I went back to the houses where I had left the rack card, but nobody had been home. And I tried to go at a different time of day. And if I'd been there Monday through Friday, I tried to go to that neighborhood or that precinct on a weekend, thinking maybe that would be the difference, or at least a different time of day. So to try to contact as many people as I can. So we walked all the precincts twice before the primary and then twice before the general election.
But how did you come across that information of who voted during that time? Like how's that made public to you or to anyone?
The Board of Elections, Allegheny County Board of Elections down on Kelly Road. You can go down there and they'll give you a form. You can get up to 8 elections that they'll give you, and you sort of pick the ones that you want. So like in that case, like I was saying that I didn't want the presidential years, I just wanted the gubernatorial years. So and then they'll give it to you on an Excel spreadsheet. They'll give you a disk that you download onto your computer, and then you just play with the Excel, slice and dice, take out what you don't want, because it shows all 11,000 voters. Right. So you have to take out the ones that, and then and so that's obviously if it's two voters in the same address, it shows you both people. So you do a little massaging on it on the data to get what you want.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the cost of that was like $75 is all.
All right. I thought they were giving it for free. I was like, no, that's not information.
There's a service charge.
Right. Yeah.
They got a fee for everything. I should say, I guess we have a fee for everything.
Right.
Yeah. So going into wanting to be mayor, what problems did you set out that you wanted to try and fix? That you want to try and fix?
I looked at a lot of the issues and concerns in Cumberland, and you look at, to me, sometimes I hate to say this, I just didn't feel like people were working well together. It just seemed to me more than anything that there was a disconnect between the city and the county and the things the things that needed to get done, both on the economic development side and also in the services. And I didn't think that people were, it's almost appeared as like each group sort of had their own agenda and wasn't really listening to what the other side was saying, and listening to what was important to the people. I think that was the skill set that I thought I could bring in. I looked at some of the plans and the way they were being executed, and there's going to be a certain amount of progress no matter what that's going to happen. But it just didn't seem to me that there was a sense of urgency to get things done.
Yeah, to one extent.
That everything was just sort of happening at the pace that would naturally happen, rather than there being, some intensity and focus on, are we making sure are we having measurable goals? Are we meeting our deadlines? And things like that was what I thought I could bring to it. And quite frankly, I'll say I think I've helped a lot in the last little over a year.
Do we plan on bringing in more businesses back in, or
like Rolling Mill, for example? That'd be a good.
Rolling Mill, of course. Now that one is a project. that conceptually, when you look at it and say, right off an interstate exit would be a perfect spot for some commercial development. You want to get people off the highway in your city,
Mhm.
and you want to generate revenue. The way that was done initially, I think, was wrong, in that if you're going to do something like that, you have to be all in. You have to be committed to, this is something we're going to do. And especially in a plot of land like that, 67 different individual owners, if you're not even willing to discuss, and the previous mayor always said that, when anybody would ask him about eminent domain, that they hadn't talked about that. Well, if you weren't willing to at least talk about it and put it on the table, a project like this was just going to drag on forever. And that's kind of what happened there. And not that I'm necessarily saying I'm a fan of eminent domain, okay? But at the same point in time, if you're going to undergo a project like that, you have to be willing to have it on the table and willing to discuss it. Otherwise, quite frankly, you don't look all that serious about it, if you ask me. I mean, out of 67 properties, you'd have to say, well, there's going to be 5% of them that aren't going to want to sell. And what are you going to do if that 5% stops the entire project? And you can't start something like that if you're not willing to finish it.
But yeah, even renovating like the touristy sites. Like I was walking in Constitution Park the other day, and I was like, this place, it's a really pretty park with the trees all around it, and then but I feel like it needs, and like the duck pond is really nice with the ducks, but I feel like it could be renovated a little more, like new park equipment, new playground equipment.
That playground and park equipment's been there since we were children.
Yeah, I used to have like family cookouts.
And you're
there.
right. It's a beautiful area that I don't think is really being fully utilized.
Right.
There's a couple of new things up there. They put in a sound garden for little kids that teaches them about the sounds that come from different instruments and different things like that. When we're putting in some new playground equipment, they put in new marble rings.
Yeah, I saw the marble rings. Yeah,
the marble rings actually for this area is something that's a little bit unique. It's something I didn't know too much about. It wasn't something that I was really.
I didn't know it was a thing really. Even.
But they've had the Mason Cup up there is an annual event that draws a pretty good group of people from the Mid-Atlantic area. So that and everybody always, if they look at that full grant, they'll say, "Oh my God, they spent $190,000 on marble rings." Well, you've got to get down into the details of it and see that over $90,000 of it is going into the into the restroom area and making them handicap accessible. So when you were up there and you saw that little building that's the restrooms, understand we'll have all new restrooms and a whole new building and some sewer work being done and things like that. So yeah, there is an overall plan for the park. It's just, quite frankly, having the money, having the dollars to be able to get these things done. And that's where, we need to do a better job of making sure the community understands the issues and the concerns. We need to do it. I think that the city staff does a good job reaching out and getting grant money. I mean, that's how they got the money for the marble rings and those new handicap accessible restrooms. But we need to continue that, and like you're saying, there's so much more that we can do. I looked at the dog park here on that same little loop that's the dog park, and I'm thinking, yeah, would I put my dog in there? And it's something you gotta ask yourself. Yeah, we can do better. We can make better utilization of what we do have, without question.
Yeah, and even like because it's another thing I was looking at, like the Cumberland poverty population, and like the drug problem, and there's a lot of within a lot of small communities, there's drug problems as well. You know, it's not just Cumberland, but is there anything like that we're doing to try and help the people through the?
You know, I'll say this: there's the Union Rescue Mission, of course, is located right down there on Park Avenue, between Park Avenue and the railroad tracks. Pastor Zeiler is doing a really good job of trying to help the homeless, or at least to be able to help the homeless who want to be helped. And when I say he's doing a good job, it's because he's working to connect with all of the other organizations within the city, the social organizations like the Department of Social Services, like the HRDC, with the Human Resource Development Commission, and the Western Maryland Health System. So there's a strong group of people working together now to help get the resources to that part of our community that we need to get them to. You know, and it's one of those things that it's going to be a constant. You know, it's going to be a constant from now on, as far as people that are homeless, people that are having drug addiction issues.
Yeah.
And I think we're making some real good headway. When I say that out, my only reservation with that is, if you look at the statistics, the number of overdoses is down. The number of deaths is down. What concerns me is that the ready availability of Narcan is probably making the numbers look better than they really are.
So wait, are you saying there's like a shortage of Narcan?
No, it's readily available.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's readily. No, the opposite of that. It's readily available, so that to the extent that someone that's using the drugs is there with a friend of his, and his friend is got the Narcan in case something happens to him right there. So, so that you had an overdose that isn't getting reported by anyone, and I think and now. That's why I'm saying the numbers may look better than what's really going on out there.
Yeah,
now, and when I say that, I'm not saying we shouldn't have the Narcan readily available. We don't want people to die, but I'm a little concerned about that. But I do believe that the rehabilitation programs are getting a better understanding of what it's going to take to get people off of the drugs and get them, moving them on to a more successful life path. But it's not going to be easy. And you were right when you said that it's something that's everywhere. If you go up and down all of Appalachia, from New York to Georgia, in the smaller communities, especially down in southern West Virginia and eastern Kentucky, where like I said, I'm from, you'll see that it's the same issues, if not worse, than we have here.
Yeah, it just seems to be a lot of small communities. I mean, it's also obviously bigger,
But I feel like it's more highlighted in a small community.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I don't know if you know about this, but I was told that when someone overdoses on whatever they overdose on, and the other person's there with them, they can call the police to come help, to give the Narcan to them, and the person who called the police, like, they won't get in trouble for having drugs. That's correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. I don't know if that was a...
Yeah, I mean, the main concern, and this is part of the issue, is that then that individual will refuse going to the hospital to get any type of treatment, and that's the real concern, is that you've got individuals that are having an overdose and you don't have a way of getting them the help.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Also, it honestly may be a little worse at the moment because of Corona, and everyone's being quarantined at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
But yeah,
and it's one of those things. If you look at it, quite frankly, during the month, the first week of the month, there's always a little bit of a rise in the number of overdoses, because that's when the money has been put into their accounts.
Yeah, that's true.
That's very true.
But back to Corona, but we had the DelFest. DelFest was postponed or canceled, right?
Yeah, it's been at this point in time, it is postponed. It hasn't been canceled. They're sorting it out to see if hopefully they can do it sometime in the fall, depending on how things work out.
And that brings in a lot of
tourist
money and economic boom for Cumberland, right?
Oh, absolutely. I'll just on a weekly basis, if you look at Rocky Gap being closed right now.
Oh yeah.
For the hotel motel tax that goes to Allegheny County, for Rocky Gap on a weekly basis, it's about $70,000 a week.
Wow.
Oh wow.
That the revenues for Allegheny County are going down, and those revenues also come into the city of Cumberland. So that's going to be the real challenge in the next couple of years, is hopefully when this is over, everybody still wants to travel and come out, not just here, but everywhere across the country. It'll affect everywhere. But that's the kind of dollars that are being lost. And other things like those, the sales tax on gasoline goes into what's the highway user revenues. Well, with gas being down at $2 a gallon, obviously the tax being collected is less because the price is less. And at the same time, I don't know how long a tank of gas is lasting you guys, but I think mine's lasting me about 3 or 4 weeks now. So
can't even go anywhere.
And that's also dollars that are going to be lost to the local municipalities and the counties and everywhere. That it's going to be, and how you make that up and continue to provide the services for your constituents is going to be a problem that we don't know what the magnitude of that's going to be just yet.
Is Rocky Gap the main revenue bringer in Cumberland, like business
for hotel motel tax? Absolutely.
Yeah,
for tourism, hotel motel tax. Yeah, that's the big one. It's Rocky Gap. Then it was always the Scenic Railroad, and then the trail, I guess. And I'm assuming that's still consistent. It would be Rocky Gap, the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad, and then the trail.
I don't know how. My thing is with this whole Corona going on and the virus, it's just, what is, me and Cody have been talking about this. What is normal when we get back to normal? Will people still be freaking out every 5 seconds over it wherever they go in public or something? Or is it just like, will there be a day where, see that, I try to think back to like one.
Oh, I know what you're saying. It's like, what is the new normal going to be?
Right, exactly. Because after 9/11, like the new normal was like TSA agents and like higher security at the airport, and so it's like, I'm not like this is another very big moment in history, I would assume, and so it's
it very well could be. I mean, or then again with a health concern like this, if you think about other pandemics in the past, once there was a vaccine, once there was a treatment plan, then you didn't have to really worry about that as much anymore. I mean, right. you still have people from time to time that'll get malaria, that get the flu or tuberculosis and things like that, but it's much more manageable than it ever was before. So in that case, I think we have a greater opportunity to return much closer back to what the norm was before, at least, and guys, I'll be honest with you now, I don't claim to be an expert on this. You know what I mean? Like we were talking. This is kind of a once in a lifetime sort of event.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
well, I mean, yes, but do you also think it could happen? This could happen again soon. Like, let's say Corona clears up, but then like another virus starts rapidly increasing, like just like Corona did or something. It's just, I don't know. I don't want, because this happens so easily and so quickly. I don't want that to happen again so easily and quickly. I don't know.
Yeah, keep in mind, Corona's only been around for what, like a month?
Since
a month and a half.
Yeah, I mean here.
I think in China it started November, December, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it hasn't been around that long, and it's amazing how quickly it was able to travel around the globe.
Oh, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm. It's just, I don't know.
How many confirmed cases are there in Allegheny County at the moment? Do you know?
In Allegheny County right now, there's 6.
Okay. Are they all?
The last time I looked, I'll tell you what. When I give you a Facebook pages, by any way, shape, or form, I think Facebook is the right place to get your information on this.
Right.
Yeah.
But the best one is the Allegheny County, Allegheny County Health Department, because the Allegheny County Health Department is the one that really, and they report it. I can tell you this, they report it very quickly.
Right.
When a new case has come out. Because I'm honestly, I might get a phone call and within 10 or 15 minutes it's out on their page. So they do a good job on Facebook, the Allegheny County Health Department page and the Allegheny County Department of Emergency Services. Those are the 2 pages where you can get really up to date, reliable information on what's going on. Because I just pulled up while I was here, I just pulled up the Allegheny County Health Department. Yeah, and we're still at 6. So, and I don't have any updated testing numbers. They've been updating out. The Allegheny County Department of Emergency Services has been updating the testing numbers on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoons. So
okay.
those are the two best places. Everything else on Facebook, just you almost have to ignore.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people I know on Facebook posting stuff about the coronavirus, saying that COVID stands for, like, the C in COVID stands for Chinese, and that the 19's like the 19. I was like, and when I read it, I was like, there's no way that's true. That can't be true.
Yeah. And some people may think they're doing the right thing when they
say,
my cousin's next door neighbor's sister is a nurse, and she says that, and I'm like, your cousin's sister's neighbor or neighbor's sister, whatever it was, is not the right person to be getting information from. And when I say this, not that people's intentions aren't good.
Right.
Their intentions may be to, hey, I'm going to communicate something I've heard, but unfortunately, it's just something you've heard. It's not necessarily a fact, and that, and that just kind of heightens the panic when people get misinformation. And the other thing is really right now, everyone's on edge.
Yeah.
Frankly, there's a lot of people out here who are afraid, who are scared for both for themselves, their families, and the business people are afraid for their businesses and everything, So right now, any little thing that somebody says can really affect people and their thought processes. I mean, the words really matter. I mean, when you see stuff on Facebook and the people just use names and I don't even want to say it, but they're calling, just calling people stupid and idiots and things like that. They're not helping the situation. And the other thing about Facebook that you have to watch is it's not necessarily what you say in your post.
Yeah.
It's what all of your friends, you know, and depending on how you have your privacy settings, sometimes your friends' friends are saying on your thread,
Right.
well, all of a sudden you've lost control over
Right.
what you initially were saying.
Exactly.
That's very true.
But once this dies down, I assume that everything's going to pick back up, and the economy will pick back up, and things will go back to normal, obviously. But back to the renovations and stuff. Once this is all over, is there any big plan, anything coming into Cumberland, or any idea that you guys have to spark up Cumberland, I should say, I guess?
Well, I'll say this: get back to the rolling mill. Just so you know, within the last month, we had conversations with a convenience store that wants to put a building on the corner of Park Street. We've also got the phase 1 drawings for a little strip that would include four shops in it, one of which would be a major telephone carrier, and there's negotiations with a couple of different franchises. And when I say that, I mean franchises that aren't already in Cumberland to put in down there. So there's progress being made on the rolling mill. I don't know if you've been by it, but they took down another 9 structures here last month. I think the virus is probably slowing things down a little bit as far as when we were going to start seeing construction, because we were looking to see construction in beginning of May to mid-May. So unfortunately, that'll probably be slowed down. But the progress is being made there. The Baltimore Street renovations, we're still on schedule as far as when we're looking at getting the engineering designs back and putting out an RFP to get some proposals for some, for the contractors on what that would cost. And we'll see if we can, like I was saying, I'm concerned again about funding for some of these projects, but the Baltimore Street renovation, I think, could be really, really good. And with, as far as industries, I know the county's in negotiation with the lithium battery corporation that would bring in some pretty good paying jobs. So lithium battery recycling. So there's still a lot of things that people are working on. I'll say this: people are working hard. We just got to get a few wins under our belt is sort of the key to it right now.
Okay. All right, cool. So thank you we've been recording now for what, about 40?
I don't even know, man. It's been a while.
So honestly. Yeah, for about 40 minutes. So
all right, sounds great. I appreciate it, guys. Like I say, to me, it was an opportunity to get some messages out to a different group of people. So thank you for asking.
Thank you so much for coming. Yeah.
Seriously, I mean,
great.
And when this is all over, we'll get together. And I don't know if you're 21 or not. If you're 21, I'd say we'd get together and have a beer. But if you're under 21, if you're under 21, don't tell me you are.
No.
Right. No, wait, I just say this is crazy. I remember when me and Cody first started this podcast not as a joke, but we were obviously serious, but we were joking about like our potential guests. And I remember saying something like, oh yeah, what if we get the mayor of Cumberland to actually be on it? It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
We're actually here, man. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. It means a lot, you being on here.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have a good day.
Yes.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, that's been another episode of Generally Speaking with Ty and Cody. Want to give a special thanks to our guest, Raymond Morris. Thank you so much for being on. Cody, got any final words you want to say?
Yeah, make sure you check us out on Twitter, Generally Speaking, Speak 9. Ty came with that username. It's a crap username.
I really didn't, but it's whatever.
Make sure you subscribe, subscribe to our YouTube page. And thanks for watching.